I want to welcome all of you to an evening with a legendary television creator and also, by the way, the son of a legendary theater creator. There's a legacy here. Abe Burrows, who did, among other things, Guys and Dolls, and Jimmy Burrows, who has really created the modern sitcom that the ones that we all watched, or depending on your age, either growing up or now you can watch them actually retroactively. But Cheers and Taxi and Friends and Night Court, and we were just talking beforehand about Will and Grace, which was a groundbreaking sitcom, not only in the United States but around the world, in its portrayal of gay characters and the way that people thought about gay characters, something that I'm going to ask him about. But all these and much more, also directed theater, were the handiwork of Jimmy Burrows, who was the creator and producer and director of various of these series at various times. And so he has graciously consented to give us an hour of his time to talk about television and theater and what's funny and maybe how you break barriers. And so thank you for being here.
A pleasure. I'm happy to be with you.
So I wanted to start off actually by asking you, when there's always a divide in any art. Are you making art to entertain people, or are you doing it to make a point? So I wonder how you think about the sitcoms you made, because it's not just that Will and Grace had gay characters, but you think about Taxi. Taxi had like oddball characters that you came to love, and the first time you see them, you think of them as oddball, but you don't in the end. Was that part of your design, or did you just want to make people laugh?
Well, I just to clarify, the one show I created with the Charles brothers was Cheers. The other shows that I did with Taxi and everything like that, I was a resident director on, and our goal was always to make it funny. If you're funny, you can get away with a lot of stuff, and if you're funny, people will watch you, and then you can subtly squeeze in soft moments and sweet moments to humanize the characters. On Taxi, you had Latka, who was played by Andy Kaufman, who was really from outer space in a strange kind of way. But they wrote tender moments for him. So he was a comic character, but if you write stuff where he's sweet and nice and has some feelings and some humanity, you'll draw a lot more people in.
Well, and when you created Cheers, it seems to me like more than any other show that I know of, it was about the setting as much as the characters, because that idea of to go where everybody knows your name, I think everyone who watches that show sort of in their minds thinks of where that is for them.
Yeah. It's an interesting juxtaposition, because we did Cheers right after Taxi. The Charles brothers had worked on Taxi, and they were the producers of it.
Right.
And Taxi was a place that everybody wanted to get out of, the taxi garage. Everybody had aspirations to leave it. So we decided to do a show where everybody wanted a place to come to. So our favorite show, our favorite show that the three of us really loved was Faulty Towers. And,
yes.
With
John Cleese.
John Cleese. And we thought about that and do a show in a hotel. Then we said, well, maybe it would take place in a bar. And then we thought about a bar, because that hadn't been done in a while. My dad started on a show called Duffy's Tavern, which was about a bar. It was a radio show. So we did this bar, and then we all love sports, so it became a sports bar. And then we needed a town that was rabid with its fanhood, and we decided on Boston. So there was probably a little thoughts of doing the antithesis of Taxi and Cheers, but once we settled on that idea, we tried to make it the most beautiful bar in the world, because a lot of people in the country don't like bars and don't like alcohol and frown upon it. So we tried to make it a place that people would feel comfortable in.
Also, you made the most lovable character, I think, that on any sitcom, who was Coach at the bar. So it was hard to not love the bar when Coach was the bartender, you know?
Oh, he was a wonderful man.
So I know this is an impossible question, but you're the best person in the world to ask it to. What makes something funny?
Okay. You don't know. I don't know.
Really?
My dad, who was a writer and a director, used to say, I can't believe I have these here. They used to say, most people see the world this way. I see the world this way. So it's just, you know, the Talmud, I know what's funny. And sometimes,
yeah, but I can learn that. You can't learn. Can you learn what's funny? Can you teach someone to be a comedy writer?
No, you have to know, you have to have a funny bone. But I think to learn the Talmud, you also have to be smart. And you know, that's
fair enough. Okay. But so, I mean, so when you're directing someone, did you always know, like instinctively, if you said the line this way, it would be much funnier?
Yes. I often say, you know, because I worked for my dad for a while. I was a stage manager, and then I was a gopher, and I did, you know, I directed stuff in summer stock and like that. And, you know, I like to say, especially when I was a kid, my dad used to take me to rehearsal, and I would run around in the back of the theater and occasionally watch. But my father was teaching me when I didn't know I was learning. And he taught me, you know, he taught me a lot of that, but instinctually I was born with a funny bone. I mean, that you can't, just like you can't make an actor who isn't funny. You can't, you have to see it through the crooked glasses.
So are actors, like, I mean, presumably you're a director, you manage all sorts of different kinds of people. Are actors more sensitive, harder to manage than like the lighting guys or, you know, other people?
Yes. I mean, they are, you know, not to disparage the lighting guys, but the creativity level is not the same as an actor. And so, you know, when I started out, it was difficult. I didn't have I like to say, the cojones to deal, you know. I started working with actors like, I was with Mary Tyler Moore and Cloris Leachman, who had been around.
And you were young. How old were you?
One. No, I was, my first job was on the Mary Tyler Moore show. And, you know, they have all the clout, they have all the ability, they have to listen to this pisha. And I try to be as creative as possible, and not to disparage, you know, the work or anything like that, and just try to make it as funny as I could. And so, you know, actors can be difficult. At this point in my career, I don't have time for that. You know, if an actor wants to be difficult, move on. You know, you're not on the Bema anymore.
Do you think, I mean, television seems so different. We're talking about this for a second beforehand, then from now. Do you think it's better? Do you think it's less good? Do you think the peaks are the same?
You know, as I always say, when I started out, there were 3 networks, and there were 60 great comedy writers. Now there are 500 networks and 60 great comedy writers. So they're just not, there are shows on the air that would have never gotten on the air 40 years ago because they're a figment of what's funny. They're not really, in essence, what's funny. And that's why there are still only so many shows that are really, really funny.
And they can't, I guess, have the concentration of talent that you had.
No.
I mean, when you have a writer's room filled with really good people, what comes out is amazing.
Yeah. It was amazing to, I used to, in the early days, I used to sit in the writer's room after rehearsal just so I could hear their intent and everything like that, because I would the next day impart that to the actors. But after a while, I stopped doing that and decided to make my own intent. So, but it was great. And there were some wonderful writers and just a lot of them in one room at the same time.
And it's very different making art with an ensemble. It's like you're not sitting alone in a room painting, or you're not sitting alone in a room composing or writing. And so I wonder if a show didn't come out well and you knew that it wasn't your fault, did that bother you? It's like everybody will see my name on it, but I know that actually this guy didn't do what he was supposed to do.
I never felt that way. I did a lot of shows in the beginning that were, anybody offered me a show and I would do it.
Right.
And I would bring something to the show, but you can only polish a pig so much. Right. And it's gonna be a pig. And but what I did and what I contributed even to those shows that weren't very good got me ahead, because people said this kid knows what he's doing.
So what was it? Like, what is it that you're so good at? I mean, I know that like you made some technical innovations in comedy, the number of cameras you used and other things, but what's your gift? What's your greatest gift? I'll put it that way.
Well, I think my greatest gift is being able to unite a cast and have them become a family, because it's my, and this is in the later years, because, it started in a little bit with Taxi and then Cheers. And then after that, I like to get them to appreciate one another, to like one another. In fact, to love, and I don't like to use that word, but to love one another. And because if they do that, that will come across the screen to the audience, that they see that these people really like one another. Although you have to have disagreements in a show to tell a story. You can't have everybody happy all the time. You have to have an angry person at some point, or anger is not good in sitcom. Frustrated person, and it gets ironed out at the end. But that's what I did. I think, because the most of the shows that I've done have been shows with unknown people that you've never seen before. And I have the ability to somehow bring them together in this to become this homogeneous family, that the love that they feel for one another comes across.
So I wonder if that's true still today. The Cheers people felt like part of your own family. I mean, I really did felt an unbelievable connection to them. And I watched the whole series more than once. I remember lots of lines from it. And I wonder if do people still feel that way today about characters in television? I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think they do. It's just not as many people feel that way about, there's so many shows that people feel strongly about Larry David. They love him.
Yeah, I don't know if they feel like he's part of their family. If they do, they're a little.
Well, no, not part of their family, but there are shows that, people do feel like the characters are part of their part
Yeah,
of it.
it really was. It came through.
Yeah, the center, the center of a show, the center of the shows that I did was always I call them the windows. That's what the audience looks to get into the show. Like Ted was the center, Sam Malone was the center,
Right.
and Judd Hirsch was the center, and Eric McCormick was the center. And on Friends, Monica Courtney's a little bit of the center in the beginning, but then the center divided, and there's 6 of them. And I think there are shows. I'm hard pressed to think. For instance, I love the Conners. I don't know if you watch the Conners, which is
No.
it's the show without that Roseanne, and now it's the Conners.
Oh, right. I didn't see that.
You feel like John Goodman. He could be your friend.
That's true.
He's a wonderful actor, and
Yes.
You feel like you could have a beer with him.
Right. Yeah, that is true. And it was, I guess, also because it was a family. You felt that way,
Right?
And certainly people did feel that way about the Cosbys. Although now that's let's leave that where it is. So did you? I mean, was there a show that you felt? When you think back on sitcoms, was there one that stands out like different in nature, or was the process basically the same with different characters?
The process is basically the same.
Yeah.
It's just different. The idea of a show never enchanted me as much as the execution of the idea. Cheers is a show about people in a bar. Right. It's not the greatest idea in the world, but the execution was great. Friends is 6 people sitting around a coffee house. The execution. So the only the one high concept show I did was Third Rock from the Sun, which has 4 aliens in it. So that was literally alien to me, but I did it because I wanted to work with John Lithgow.
And when you did Will and Grace, like, did you know? I mean, I think that David and Max had some idea, but did you know that it was going to have such a social impact? Did you feel that?
No, not at all. I'm not a proselytizer. I leave that to Norman Lear, who was a genius at doing that. I never proselytized. And the boys, when they wrote that script, they wrote a romantic comedy that wouldn't be consummated. And we were surprised. We were surprised. It was, and I often tell this story. I drove carpool for Maggie Burrows, who did attend Sinai Religious School.
Yes, she did.
Yes. And I drove, and she was 13 or 14, and I would drive on Thursdays, and I would pick up 3 other kids, and we'd be driving at that point, she went to Harvard Westlake. We'd be driving there, and after about 5 minutes, one of her friends would say, "What's going to be on Will and Grace tonight?" And I would say this and that. And then I thought about it. I would answer the question. I thought about it. And I said, my God, you have these young teenage kids who are now watching a show about gay people.
Right.
And they are into the show. This maybe is going to help when they grow up to accept gay people. But we never set out to do that. We just set out to do this romantic comedy that couldn't be consummated and make it as funny as possible, because we knew 25% of the country would probably not watch the show because it had gay people in it. So, and there was probably another 20% that were suspect. So we figured if we could get them to watch and just a little bit, just one bit. And it was funny that they would continue. And that's what happened. We were very lucky. I mean, we didn't break that. Ellen broke down the door and we busted through it. That's how I like to describe it.
It's amazing, though. Part of the lesson is, if you're funny, you can get past people's defenses in a
Yes.
really powerful way.
Yes,
I guess
we even. I'm sorry. I hate
No,
to
no.
interrupt. I hate to interrupt the rabbi.
No,
There are times
please
during the
interrupt.
sermon which I wish I could, but in fact, we were so concerned about getting people that the first year and a half, we thought we would indicate that Will and Grace would get, Will would take the magic pills and cure his homosexuality, and he and Grace would be a couple. So in the pilot, there's a kiss at the end of the pilot.
Yeah.
And at the end of the first year, there's a kiss under the chuppah. I think it's a chuppah. Yeah, I think it is. And so we just did that just to mislead America.
Right. And it worked.
Yeah.
And I wonder if, like, as it went on, did it then give you the freedom to, once you realized that people were hooked on the show, did the boundaries get easier?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We could get away with a lot of stuff. I mean, that show is outrageous. It's an outrageous show. We say some things on that show because euphemisms are funnier than the actual word.
Right. Especially Megan Mullally
I know.
The things she says, crazy.
They're a lot like Carla. Carla was the mean waitress, but she got away with it, because it was funny, and Megan was funny, but the euphemisms and I like to say that show was, I called it a fairy tale, literally and figuratively. And it was amazing what we got away with. And then in the second incarnation, we dealt a little bit more with being older and being gay, what it's like to be older and gay, because we had them wearing glasses, and Will and Grace, we were resigned that they would not get together really, but maybe they'd live together but not romantically. So we got a lot more poignant in the second permutation.
So do you think that it's harder in some ways to be funny because there's nothing you can't say? I mean, you can't shock an audience anymore.
No, but that's why I say the euphemism is so much better than the actual word.
Right.
Because people go, oh my God, they thought of that for that word. If you watch Will and Grace, there are so many euphemisms. I
just remember, like, when Richard Pryor would do his monologues, he would shock you with what he said. But now it's very hard what can a comedian possibly say that would actually shock their audience?
I have no idea. I mean, I watch Shameless, which was on, it's a comedy. It was on Showtime, and I was shocked.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I was shocked.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really funny and really, really, really strange.
Do you have a hard time watching TV because you're critiquing, or do you get lost in it?
I don't spend a lot of time with Busman's Holidays. I don't watch other shows. I watch Curb, and I'll watch. I'm a big sports nut, and so I'll watch sports, and that's it. But I don't watch a lot of situation comedies on television.
Is there any part of you that would like to do a very different kind of show? The kind of like extended drama, crime, Sopranos, like, You ever had a hankering for that? Yeah. Okay. There's the
right.
answer. There's the
All
answer.
right.
You would
Yeah,
end up turning them into
if I did a
comments.
Sopranos, he'd fire the gun and a flag would come out and say bang. And I think I would lose all credibility at that point.
Is that wait? I wonder what that is. I wonder what that is about. I remember my father told me years ago that there was some Yiddish saying, "Who is a hero? The one who suppresses a wisecrack." I think like the ability to not tell a joke is really hard sometimes.
I know.
And
I can't, and sometimes you regret opening your mouth, but I get graded at the table by my wife,
Right.
and my daughters too. Oh,
Of course.
Dad, and it's,
but that's a score, right? If you tell a really bad joke, that's a score with your kids.
Oh God.
The same with mine. So, in directing on stage, is it a very different experience from doing television?
Yeah. I mean, in a theater, although the shows I do are actually theatrical shows, they're done on a set in a proscenium like a theater, and the audience laughs and the actors wait for that. Right. But in a theatrical production, there are no cameras, so you have to be aware where the audience focus needs to be. In a sitcom on television, you can edit it, and right. You put the audience focus exactly where it should be. So it's a lot different.
And do you prefer television?
I do. Yeah. I do. I prefer being able to do a show in a week and get a result. It's so much more gratifying that way.
And you've done so much. Is there anything that you still want to do that you haven't been able to do?
No. I'm getting to the point now where I don't do a lot. I just did a pilot with Alec Baldwin and Kelsey Grammer, which was really funny. And
can we ask what it's about?
It's about two guys who reunite after many years being apart, both pompous asses.
By the way, that's a really wonderful show. The show with Alan Arkin and Michael Douglas. I don't know if you've seen it.
Kaminsky Meth.
Yes, Kaminsky Meth. Yeah, that one is done really.
I know.
Yeah, that's funny.
That's no audience. That's
right.
Yeah.
Oh, this is with an audience. The Baldwin.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Kelsey and Alec are with an audience. Yeah.
That sounds. I mean, I can imagine them both being pompous, playing pompous. That would be. I think that would be great. When does it come out?
I don't know. We're waiting to hear.
So, do you get excited still?
I get excited when the audience comes in.
Yeah. Wow.
I get it. And I get excited because, a little bit during the work week. Because the writers write and they give me the script, and then I block the actors, move the actors around the script. And so the writers will come down and see it. So I get a little excited for them to see what we've done on stage. It's such a writer's driven medium that for us as the actors and the director to feel nachas is to be able to show them and to contribute to the script, and with an occasional joke or an occasional sight gag, something like that. It perks your spirit up.
How good are you at judging your own work in terms of the audience? Like, do you know this episode is really going to hit? And are you usually right?
Well, yeah, I mean, on shows that are already successful, most of the shows hit. When I do pilots, when I did the pilot of Cheers, we thought we had a good show, And always on pilots, which is the first show of a series, I bring in an audience 4 days before we shoot the show. And on this show, on Cheers, I brought in an audience, and it was mainly Seabees from Camp Pendleton, Marines. And I looked at Glenn Charles and I said, "Oh my God, this doesn't bode well." And they started to laugh a little bit, and then Norm entered, and they went through the roof. And so I knew then they got engaged in the characters, and then I knew it on the Friends pilot, I knew it on the Will and Grace pilot, I knew it on the Third Rock pilot. I knew that, that's the best thing you can do, is to bring an audience in before, because the audience can tell you where it's lagging, whether they like characters, whether they like some jokes. You can always change the jokes. So, those are the moments I remember.
So why are Jews funny?
Why are Jews funny?
Yeah.
Because they pay the audience to laugh.
See, that's the kind of thing you can't say on television.
I know, or on a Zoom call.
Or on a Zoom call.
They've always been funny. I don't know why. Why are they good with money?
Some aren't. Believe me, I can introduce you to some who aren't.
I know, but some Jews aren't funny either.
Some Jews aren't funny. But it's really, is it still the case? Are comedy writers and so on, do you find a lot of them are still Jewish, or is that fading?
I think that's fading, because there are so many venues now. After a while, you run out of funny Jews,
Yeah. You run out of funny Jews. That's a funny line. But there are still, I hear this even from, obviously they grow up in Los Angeles, but I think it's true all over. There's still so many people who want to be in the entertainment industry at like so many different levels. So when you get approaches, I'm sure you must, like, give me advice. What do I do? How do I get there? What's your best advice for people?
This is what I say. Knock on every door you can possibly knock on to get in. Get in any way you can, as a gopher, as a runner, as an assistant, as a writing assistant. Get in, because if you're around a set, stuff will happen to you. You'll maybe be asked to pick up an actor, so you make a connection that way. Once you're there and you want to do something like direct or write or something like that, make sure that when you want to do that, you're ready to do that.
Right. Don't
go, getting your foot in the door is not that difficult. Getting that opportunity before you're ready you're dead. Getting the opportunity when you're ready is a blessing. And so don't shoot for the moon till you're ready, till you build your rocket ship. And then, because you don't get that many opportunities to show your wares.
No, it's such a competitive business that I'm sure you're right, that if you don't take advantage at the time, they're not going to try you again.
No.
You'll go on to the next guy. Has the position of women changed dramatically inside the entertainment industry since you began?
Yes, absolutely. There are a lot more women directors. There are a lot more women writers. Actors and actresses have always been the same. And there are a lot more women on the crew, cameramen, lighting people and stuff like that. So yes. And
what about, I was going to ask about diversity in general and color too.
Well, that's a big thing now. Networks want that. There's a big push for diversity, and it's required now. The pilot I did had to have a diverse crew, the one I just did. So you're reaching out to to blacks, to Asians, to Latinx to be on your cruise.
And is it, I mean, I assume that that can't be easy because there may not be the people there with the skills in whatever group that you need. So presumably there must be a lot of recruiting now going on.
Yeah. And it's, it's tough because I have a camera crew that I've worked with for 25 years. And they, I like to use them. They make my life easier. And, but
Right.
now there's a quest to make it much more diverse.
So, okay, somebody asked the question, which is actually kind of an interesting question. If there was somebody who you never worked with, they said who's no longer living, although I'd be curious to know both. Is there a living actor, or also from the past who you would most want to work with? If you could like summon someone up from the grave and shoot a pilot with them, who would it be?
Wow. Probably Cary Grant.
Yeah. Huh.
Talking
He could be funny.
Yeah.
He could be very funny.
He was very funny, but you
Yeah.
didn't know it till he started making the comedy.
Right.
I would love to work with him, but I'm not sure he'd do a sitcom.
Yeah. Is there any living actor that you haven't worked with that you've really always said that person would be fun to work with?
Wow. Oh God. I don't know.
I wonder if there are any foreign actors, for example, who
I'd love to work with Gerald Depardieu.
yeah.
He's a wonderful French actor.
Yeah.
And I love he's burly like this, and I think
he has this huge physical presence, right?
Yeah, he's really funny.
Yeah. I could actually see that he could be incredibly funny because he's, yeah. I know that you can't exactly tell us, but what is it about the fact that there are some people who, when they show up on camera, you just have to look at them? What is that quality? I mean, and can you spot that? Do you know it before they get on camera? Do you see an actor like in person and say, if I put that person on camera, you're going to have to look at them?
It's just star quality. It's just,
yeah.
It's a gift. The pilot I did Be Positive. Annalee Ashford, who plays the girl on Be Positive, has that face you just want to look at.
Huh.
You don't. There are certain face. Leo DiCaprio has a great face, and that's why they become movie stars, because they have that glint.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing to see. And do they always have it in person, or have you worked with actors that come alive on the camera but off camera are not? You don't have to give me examples. I'm just curious.
No, usually because you audition actors, so you can see. They're gonna turn on their charm when they're auditioning, especially in the shows that I do, which are mainly you have unknown actors. So you're not going to get the part unless you perform in a room for me and the writers.
I remember in I think it was La La Land, where they had a scene where they showed someone doing various auditions, and that they were really cut, in a sort of brutal way. And I think I didn't realize until that moment, which I suppose sounds stupid, but the truth is I'd never really thought about acting, how incredibly exposed and vulnerable you are as an actor when you audition for someone. And it does take an enormous amount of courage or self-confidence or denial or whatever it is to be able to do that.
Yes. When people talk to me about wanting to be actors, I say, you got to have a hearty stomach. And you got to, the best thing to do is think your talent, that people didn't see your talent when they said next or thank you, you know.
Right.
And again, it could be that you're acting and you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. I often
Yeah.
talk about, casting, which there's a lot of luck involved in casting. When I did the pilot for Friends in '94, I was already doing 4 pilots, and I read this script and I said, I have to do this show. And it was the last pilot I did at the end of pilot season. And those 6 actors were available.
Really?
So, I'm sure they had read for other stuff.
Right.
They had been walked into offices and been told next, but those 6 were available, and that's what happened. So there is a lot of luck involved.
And also, I mean, I think anybody who doubts that talent can override almost anything just has to see Louis in Taxi. Because if you look at this guy, you would think this guy will never, ever be an actor, right? If he walked into the room and said, I want to be an actor, Dad, if you were a good father, you would say, choose something else, right? It's not going to work for you. But he's amazing. He's just amazing. So.
Yeah, I mean, he came in to read for Taxi, and he walked in the door, he threw the script on the table, and he said, who wrote this crap? He did. He said that. And he was Louis. He was being Louis.
That's Danny DeVito, for those of you who don't know Louis.
Yeah, he was Danny DeVito, who's, a wonderful director too.
I mean, it's just, it really is, it's an abject lesson in, if you're really, really gifted, then it will come through. And other things won't block you because, as you said, anyway, so that's, I always thought of him as a wonderful model. It's just like the, when I was growing up, Calvin Murphy, then there are some others too, who was like 5'8", and you thought this guy's never going to make it NBA, but he was amazing. He was just incredibly gifted. So, and I'm sure there have been a couple of other NBA players also who've been like your height and my height, but they still play in the NBA.
I know.
Go figure. Not, by the way, Jewish. None of them. Just want to make that.
Wait a minute. When I used to watch the Knicks in New York City, half the team was Jewish.
Yeah, there was a time.
Max Ozlowski was Jewish. Yeah. There were 3 or 4 of them.
Yes. Nat Holman before them, early on in basketball.
Right.
Yeah, it's true. And wasn't Dolph Shays? I think he was.
Dolph Shays, yeah, Syracuse.
Yeah, he was Jewish.
Small book.
So I take it back. So just 2 more questions, if I can, and then we will let you get back to your evening and to your family. So the first is if you're watching television, like when you speak to a writer and you say to them, how should I read? I mean, most people when they're watching television just watch it. Is there anything like that you think people could look for that would enhance their experience? Any ways they could watch actors that they would learn more about watching? I mean, is there any like professional tips on how to watch?
It's hard because when the show gets to television, they've taken the best takes of all the actors and put them together. Well, the best thing to do is if they can go observe or watch when they're shooting, you can see a director mold a performance. But once it's on the film, they've taken the best performances and put them all together to tell a cohesive story. So that would be difficult.
And do you think like it's a very divisive time? Do you think that television has a role, entertainment has a role in healing us? And do you think it can to some extent? Are there shows that can bring us together? I mean, there used to be. Could there be now?
I certainly hope so. I mean, it's just so crazy now. It's so civil war now. And I would hope there are shows that can bridge the gap. I mean, funny, funny, makes both sides laugh, but I don't know if it does anything to bring them together. I'm not sure. I keep my fingers crossed. But
I mean, one of the things your shows were about, this is a strange phrase, but they were about regular people. And that actually was a good thing. I mean, like there was no, and you didn't condescend to them. Like Cheers and Taxi, and they were like about America. So that I think is kind of a hopeful thing that people could identify with. And obviously, Will and Grace, even though Will and Grace Funny, it was a different class, I guess, than Cheers and Taxi, which I never really thought about.
Yeah.
They seem wealthier.
Yeah, except for Jack.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It was a different time. Cheers was in a different time, and people talked to one another then. We were careful though. We never did political stuff on Cheers, ever. We never did topical stuff either.
Right.
We did Kierkegaard jokes and Schopenhauer jokes, but we never did Democrat, Republican, or anything like that. And
well, who doesn't love a good Schopenhauer joke?
Yeah. And we never had a priest and a rabbi walk into the bar.
Yeah. There were imperishable moments, like when Sam and Diane went into the back office and said to Coach, "We don't want to be disturbed." And he said, "Who does?" And I never forgot that. I thought that was like, because a billion times I've heard people say, "I don't want to be disturbed." And I never thought nobody wants to be disturbed, obviously. Those kinds of moments, though, they stick in your mind, and they do actually make, I don't know, they make a difference. I said that was the last question, but I guess it wasn't the last question. Someone said Tip O'Neill.
But it was a non-political, and believe it or not, we didn't do a lot of guest stars on Cheers. Tip O'Neill was our casting director the first year. His mother was Tip O'Neill's secretary. Wow. And we reached out to him. He was in Palm Springs. We reached out to him and we said, "You're in Boston. Would you like to do the show?" And he said, "Sure." So if you'll notice, he sits next to Norm in the bar, and it's the only time there was ever a stool there, because that was a waitress station. That's where Carla and Diane came. Right. A stool there, and but was no politics. We had Gary Hart on, but again, it was it was not political.
Tip O'Neill was all politics are local.
Yeah,
and it was your local place. So
yeah.
Well, thank you. This was really wonderful, and I just I said to my daughter beforehand. Told her that I was going to interview you, and I said, "Is there anything you want to ask him or say to him?" She said, "No, just thank him for all the time that he made me laugh." So I think we all want to say that.
Will you give her my best?
I will. I absolutely will.
It's and continue, Rabbi, continue to be funny. And if you need props, a seltzer bottle.
Exactly. That's right.
To
spray at the congregation, right?
Yes, spray the congregation. I mean, just it's always a pleasure to talk to you. And
thank you, and to you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and thank you, Jimmy Burrows, for all the times you've made us laugh.
Thank you,
Good night,
Ray.
everyone.